So that, ladies and gentlemen, adds up to almost $50,000. Hi parents, welcome to AskTetsu, where we talk about raising global kids by raising them to be multilingual, multicultural, and multi-talented. Okay, today is the second video about topics that I discuss with my children at our one-on-one sessions. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the video where I explain our bi-weekly one-on-one sessions in more detail. Now today we're talking money. And I think an integral part of raising global kids is raising them to adopt a strong, responsible, and mature attitude towards money, so that as parents, we can have peace of mind when our kids grow up, knowing that they will be financially okay wherever they may find themselves in the world, doing whatever they want to do in life. So anyway, how exactly do I teach them about money? Now, they can only do very simple math. They're not old enough to get a job, so they don't have any income. And most importantly, they're not really mature enough to fully appreciate or comprehend what money really is, and along with obviously all the impact that it brings. But for me, that is precisely the point, because I want to start before they have too much awareness of money, before their desires and needs start to escalate, because by then the way they see money will sort of be strongly biased by their emotions. Right now, they still have relatively a neutral attitude towards money. So I think it's a great time to start, to build good money habits that will serve as a solid foundation throughout their life. So what I do is shockingly simple, I think. I use allowances as a platform for the kids to learn about income, expenses, savings, and even investing. For the 10 full years from age 8 to 17, our kids will be getting a weekly allowance. Starting at 8 years old, the weekly allowance will be $10 a week, and every subsequent year they'll get $2 more per week. So all the way until the end of the 17th year. That's simple enough. So Nika is 8 years old, she gets $10 a week. Ronnie is 10, so he gets $14 a week. If you do the math, you add up the 10 years worth of allowances, and at the end actually give them $120, sort of a completion bonus. We'll have a grand total of 10,000 Canadian dollars over the 10 years as allowance. Is that a lot? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But as I will explain a little bit later, it's actually even more than that. Now what is important here is that the model is consistent and it's easy to understand even for little children. So they know and we know what to expect over the next 10 years, the amount of money that they'll get every week. And that's it. So we just hand out free pocket money to them? Not really. I mean, that's not how life works, right? There are two proverbial strings attached to the payment of their allowance. Now, I'm sure you agree. First, you gotta earn it. So they have a list of tasks assigned to them that they have to complete, which they track on a weekly basis on this little slip. And we go over the slips together at our one-on-one sessions every other week. Now that said, there are sort of two schools of thoughts regarding tying allowance to chores. Now the first school is against it. So I guess the idea is helping around in the house should not be a paid task, but rather something that all family members should simply contribute to from their heart. And yeah, I agree. And then the second school argues that kids need an incentive, a motivation for tasks to be sustainable and well done. And I also agree to that. So how do I sort of reconcile these two opposing views? Well, for one thing, we don't do pay-per task schemes. So it's not like you do task A and then you get X dollars. So there's no direct link like that with the allowance to each specific task. It's more like you have a list of things you do as part of a family member that you contribute to. But if you don't do them well, you skip them all the time, then you risk not getting your allowance. It's sort of from that perspective that we go. Now, on the other hand, there are times when we ask them to do things, help us with bigger tasks. Like the other time I asked Ronnie to build a whole wall full of closets and shelves for grandma. and he was 9 years old at the time. And honestly, I thought it would be quite difficult for him, but he worked hard and did a fantastic job. And we gave him a bonus for that on top of his weekly allowances. Now, we didn't set a price in advance or anything. It wasn't paid. He didn't know the pay in advance. It was just a surprise bonus after the fact. So he was working to make these shelves for grandma without really expecting anything. So what do you think so far? I mean, are we asking too much? Obviously we know that they're little kids. We're being very reasonable with them. Don't worry. We've literally never really denied them allowance yet. And to be fair, they do complete most of their tasks most of the time without us chasing them down all the time. So it's been working pretty well so far. And as a matter of fact, there was a cool incident that happened when Ronnie actually told us that he felt that he did not do enough tasks that week to deserve his allowance. So think about it. I mean, this honesty really gave me hope that my kids will grow up to become decent human beings. Now let me tell you about the second condition to getting their allowance. The first one being they need to earn it. Now the second one is that they must put at least 50% of their allowance into Daddy Bank's savings account. Now this is, of course, to practice saving. But to really understand the flow of money, I've actually set up individual bank accounts for the kids. And every week, $14 is deposited from my bank account to Ronnie's, and $10 to Nika's account. And again, at our bi-weekly one-on-one sessions, I'll get the kids to physically actually go online and open their accounts to confirm the transfer that came in. And then now they need to do a reverse transfer of the amount that they want to put into Daddy Bank's savings account. Now, this back and forth of money may seem pointless to some, but I think the key to quickly learning it up is to use their own eyes and hands to manage that flow of money. And now, there's actually a little detail that I haven't told you about Daddy Bank's savings account, and that is it actually yields a 3.5% interest. So, of course, this is to allow me to teach them the concept of compound interest. But I admit it's still a little advanced, I think, for elementary school kids to understand or really grasp the concept. But I actually track all their savings every time that they send it to me on a separate spreadsheet that we look at together. And now they can really actually see how their money will grow over time. But still, I guess, even with that, it's still quite difficult. I think they're still not mature enough to truly understand the impact of compound interest, but it's okay. Over time, I think they will. For now, Ronnie understands the math, I guess, enough to understand that his best option is to actually just put in 100% of his allowance into Daddy Bank's savings account in order not to miss the interest. I mean, unless he's got something that he really wants to buy, but it's not come up so often. The occasional candy or pop, but nothing big so far. Nika, on the other hand, I feel that she probably still doesn't really understand the concept of interest, whether it's 3.5 or 5%. I don't think she understands, but that's fine, right? She'll get it over time. For now, what she does is when she puts money into Daddy Bank's savings account, it's usually just very random amounts, just based on her feeling that day. It could be $13, $17, whatever. It's just what pops into her mind at that time, and that is fine. I respect her decision. It's all part of the learning process. So that, in a nutshell, is where we're at with this little exercise of ours. And as the kids grow older, we'll surely add more and more layers of complexity to this finance lesson. Like, maybe later we'll talk about part-time job income. Maybe older, we'll try stock market, basic economics, accounting, that kind of stuff. And I think, very importantly, I'd like to introduce the concept of philanthropy. Something along the lines of if they put X amount into a charity, like, I don't know, UNICEF or World Vision, where you sponsor a child in a poor country, then Daddy and Mommy, we'll sort of add in an amount matching whatever they put in or more, depending on where we're at. And together we could follow the development of the sponsored child. That could be something we could talk about at our one-on-one sessions. So that's something I have in mind for now. It's just ruminating on these ideas. Oh, and remember I mentioned earlier that if we add up all the weekly allowances over the 10 years, the total would be 10,000 Canadian dollars, but that in reality is actually even more. Well, you probably guessed it by now, the additional amount would be the interest. So if we actually run a simulation with the assumption that the kids put in 100% of the allowances into Daddy Bank's savings account, like Ronnie does oftentimes, the final amount would actually be closer to like $12,000. And then, remember, we have 4 children. So that, ladies and gentlemen, adds up to almost $50,000. And who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Perhaps it might be even more expensive by increments of $12,000. I don't know. Alright, so this video was about how I am training my kids' financial mind for the future. But the video in that corner over there is actually about how my parents prepared me for my life as a global citizen, starting from my childhood in Taiwan to eventually establishing my life here in Canada. And what pops up right below this window is what YouTube thinks you might be interested in. And I'll see you in the next video.